Welcome to Motivation Local, a podcast where we explore how place shapes identity, community, and the way we see ourselves. I'm your host, Corey Sotomayor, and I'm grateful you've joined me for Season 2. I'm grateful too for the generous support from TELUS Story Hive, supporting so many podcasts across Alberta and British Columbia. Lived experience doesn't just shape how people view their community, it also influences how they view themselves. The sum of these experiences and memories forms a narrative about place. At the heart of this season, we continue to explore how these stories intersect, how community motivates its people, and how people in turn motivate their community. This year, our conversations will stretch further. We'll still share stories rooted in Medicine Hat, but with a bit of a twist. Many of this season's episodes will be presented through the eyes of some of our more creative community members. Each will bring a unique perspective on the connection between place and identity. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that Motivation Local is created on the traditional lands of the Blackfoot and Cree peoples, within the homelands of the Métis Nation, and at the meeting place of Treaty 4 and Treaty 7. These lands have been gathering places for generations, and we honor and learn from the deep relationships Indigenous people continue to have with this land. I look forward to sharing this new season of conversations with you on Motivation Local. Today on Motivation Local, we're stepping into a very different kind of stage, one that sits right at the heart of community life, the porch. My guest is Brian Konrad, a voice that has been woven into Medicine Hat's daily rhythm for more than 40 years, from the early days at CHAT and CJCY to decades of telling our stories on television and radio. Brian has been a narrator, a guide, and in many ways, an historian of this place. When our local newsroom shuttered, Brian didn't step away, he stepped closer. Along with a few familiar friends, he joined Bring Back the Porch podcast, a space meant to revive what we've quietly lost, unhurried conversations, neighborly curiosity, and the feeling that stories are best shared eye to eye, not keyboard to keyboard. Today, we talk about belonging, legacy, the changing landscape of local media, and what it means to keep showing up for your hometown, even when the platforms change. So pull up a chair. This is my conversation with Brian Konrad. Thanks for joining me on Motivation Local. It's exciting to have you as a guest.
It's going to be different to be a guest, to be on the other side.
Yeah.
I'm used to asking the questions. Yeah. I didn't study for this, so I don't know if I have the answers.
Well, what's super cool is I didn't study to do this.
Oh, okay.
So. When I was doing some research, it was funny because when at the Pod Summit in September, I was sitting there listening to the presentation, and then they turned to questions. And then I could hear a question being asked and went, oh my God, I know who that is. That's Brian Konrad. I was going, I know that. I just have to hear the voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought that was, it took me way back. And so I kind of wanted to start there to the early days of CHAT and CJCY and what hooked you on broadcasting in the first place.
Well, I always joke about Ted Baxter, the anchor man. Okay. It all started in a 5,000-watt radio station in Fresno, California. Not really, but when I was a little boy, I got a tabletop hockey set.
Okay.
And back when there were 6 teams,
yeah.
And whenever I would play with my friends, we'd be doing tabletop, I memorized all the lineups for all 6 teams. So I would do the play-by-play.
Yeah.
And I would, be like the Bob Ridley of tabletop hockey.
Yeah.
And that kind of got me started. When I was in grade 6, my teacher, Mr. Leahy, told me that I should be a newsreader because when we had to read in front of the class, I always did it flawlessly. Yeah. I didn't have any problem. I could look away from my copy and keep going and find my place. Yeah. It was just natural.
Yeah.
Forgot all about that. Got several years down the road, and I wanted to find what I wanted to do in life. And a teacher that had been at the LCI where I went to school in Lethbridge said, there's a job coming up at this new television station in Lethbridge. It was CFCN when they got a satellite TV there.
Yeah.
And it's for news photographer. And I thought, oh, that would be neat, because I always liked fiddling around with cameras and stuff like that. So I applied, and they hired me. But it was one of these federal jobs, which meant that there had to be some federal money. That federal money never came through.
Okay.
So I thought, well, I'll just go to school and learn how to do this. So I got some calendars, and I'm flipping through different calendars of different schools. And I came to the one at Fanshawe College in London, Ontario. And cinematography was on the right-hand page. And I'm looking at it, and all the things they were going to teach you, how to use a camera to shoot this and that. And I happened to look at the other side of the page. Broadcast journalism, what's that all about? I'm reading it. Sports, play-by-play. It all came back. Ding, 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 ding. We have a winner.
Yeah.
So I enrolled in the broadcast journalism course in Fanshawe College in 1974. Graduated in 1976 and went to work. My first full-time job was at CJOC in Lethbridge, which was also the television station, CJLH.
Okay.
I was there for a month until they came and hired me in Calgary to work at CKXL in Calgary, which was the big rock station back then. Worked with guys like Norm Edwards and Billy Powers and Dieter Stashow and Johnny Walker. They were all rock and roll legends, and I'm just this snot-nosed kid that came in off the street, didn't really know where I fit into all of this. Yeah. And so about the first 3 months, I think they're going to fire me every day because I don't know what I'm doing. At least I didn't think I knew what I was doing. And it was a November 11th Remembrance Day service that I was attending, and about 22 years old, I guess, 21. And I never served in the military. I didn't know anything really other than, the history of wars. But I watched the people there that day. And at that time, there were still quite a few veterans from the Second World War. And I saw the impact it had on them, the remembrance and thinking of their friends, their buddies that didn't make it. And so when I went back, I got all the obligatory sound, the taps, all of that stuff. But I wrote a little essay about how it affected me, what I saw, what I felt. And I recorded it and left it. And I got to work the next day, and they said, the switchboard's been going crazy. People want a copy of your essay. I said, really? That was just something I did. Yeah. They said, that's what we want you. We want you to be you. I can do that. I know how to do that. I didn't have to be this other persona. Right. I could just be me. And from there, it was all the rest of my career. So a super cool lesson to learn early on. Hey? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just be natural. Be yourself. Yeah. So you've covered like train crashes here and floods and plane crashes in Cranbrook. If you were to think of what is like a quintessential Brian Konrad moment, outside of this first essay, what's one that jumps out at you? I think it's probably the Our Town series that I did for CHAT Television. They came to me in 2005, and that was the year that Alberta was 100 years. Okay. They said, can you do a historical vignette series? I said, sure, okay. Problem is that that was when they were in the middle of construction for the Esplanade. Okay. So all the historical material was in boxes from where they were out on the highway there. At the museum there, Museum. Yeah. But I had some of my own material. I have some of my own history books and stuff. Yeah. So, we just did what we could. And they were so well received. Yeah. The next year was 2006 was the city's centennial, 100 years. Can you do more? Yeah. I said, well, now the Esplanade archives are open. So I spent hours down there going through old newspapers and reading and making notes and scribbling stuff. And I think we did, between the 2 years, we did about 51 or 52 different episodes. Put them onto DVD, and they sold them in Christmas. I think they made 1,000 of them, and they were gone in minutes. Wow. So they said, we have a hit here. Yeah. But then it kind of, well, what else are you going to do? Well, it kind of fell by the wayside, and I just did other stories. Yeah. But when Cam Clark came to Medicine Hat to take over as general manager here a couple of years ago, he wanted to know about the history of the area. And I said, well, I had these 2 DVDs. I said, here, look at these. This is what I did back then. And he watched them. He came back. He says, can you do those again in HD? Sure, because we didn't have HD in 2006. We went to HD in 2007. So I got my, because I save everything. It's part of being a historian, I guess. You save everything. And I brought all my old scripts out, and now, of course, there was more material that was available for use out of the Esplanade, and they were great partners. They would find things for me. I would say, I think I remembered something about this, and they'd go and dig and find it. And so we produced not only the 52, we did, I think, probably another 25 new ones after that. And I had another one on the drawing board when they pulled the plug on us in June of 2025.
Okay.
And I thought, we can still do these.
Right.
And I thought, maybe I can do them on YouTube. So I talked to a couple of the people that were in the same boat as myself that got laid off. I said, what do you think about this? And I thought, well, you can find somebody, we'll do it. Bernie Leahy had called me about 18 months before the station closed. He was doing a Tell Us Story Hive, and he wanted me to be part of it. And I said, well, as long as I'm working for Pattison, I can't, because that's a conflict of interest. Right. So then, I'm not working for Pattison any longer. I called him up, and I said, hey, Bernie, I'm a free agent now. So we sat down, and we said, he has this podcast. I said, what's a podcast? I didn't know. I mean, I had an idea it was like a radio program, just recorded. But I've since learned that it's way bigger than that. I joked at the Medicine at College when we were making a presentation to some students a couple of weeks ago. I said, if you would have asked me what a podcast was, I would have said Ted and Garth, Wayne and Garth in their basement in Wayne's World. Yeah. And I looked out, and they were like, what? Crickets, right over. Know Wayne's generational thing. It just didn't register. Yeah. But no, that's how I went from being a broadcaster to a podcaster. Wow. But I've seen and done lots of stories over the years.
So those the Our Town series, because they reminded me almost like a little bit like Paul Harvey.
My mentor, he was my hero. The rest of the story.
Right. Yeah. There's Historica or History.ca commercials. Mm-hmm. I had my students make one of those once when I was teaching grade 5, because they just had such a neat delivery to them. Yeah.
When I was young, on the radio, Calgary Power used to do a series called Our Alberta Heritage, and there would be little vignettes like that. Yeah. And if you wanted, you could send away, and Calgary Power would send you the scripts. So, of course, being a nerd at 7 or 8 years of age, I wanted that. Yeah. And I don't know, over time that got lost, but that was my first indoctrination into doing history in short little.
Well, and that's what I was just thinking about was how do you take a story and make it into that show? Like, what was your process for doing that?
Just reading. Just like I said, I went through a lot of old material, reading stories and thinking about, because I said I need a hook. I need something to tie it all together, which became the outline, Yeah. But then that's just another story in the history of our town. Yeah. And so I would sort of start from the end and go back to the beginning. Right. There's lots of wonderful stories about the history of this area.
Yeah. And what would be one that really even surprised you when you learned about it?
I think the one that resonates with me is how the CPR came here. Okay. Because my grandfather came here in 1904 to work with the CPR. He was going to be here for about 6 months. He retired here in 1946, and he is now resting comfortably out at Hillside. Yeah. Raised a family here. My mother was one of them on Belfast Street. I was born here. I was born in the old hospital, which is another story that always fascinated me. Was, Medicine Hat was a little more than I think they used to refer to as a parched blister on the prairies, but it had a hospital. Yeah. In 1889, the first hospital between Winnipeg and Vancouver in Medicine Hat. Yeah. Medicine Hat was a happening place in the latter part of the 19th century. At one time, they thought maybe this might be the capital of Alberta.
Yeah.
But, of course, they went a little further north.
Yeah.
But
I have an interesting story about that. I was in Dr. Roy Wilson's history class.
Yes. Oh, great historian.
And Dr. Wilson, as he told it to us, was that the person that was the representative for the Medicine Hat area and the person that was the representative for the Regina were the same person.
Yeah, Finley.
And that both provinces are incorporated at the same time, and basically whoever, wherever the capital was going to be, that person would become the first premier. And so essentially he had to decide whether to become the premier of Saskatchewan or the premier of Alberta, and he couldn't be both. And so that's how Medicine Hat kind of lost that opportunity.
Yeah, and they didn't know where they were going to draw the line between Alberta and Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
And I think the people in Maple Creek wanted to be part of Saskatchewan, so that's kind of how it got decided.
It's amazing, eh?
Yeah, just, an arbitrary decision.
Yeah. I saw a story about you going back to the arena.
Yes.
And that was an emotional experience.
Yes, it was.
And,
Yep.
like an archaeological expedition.
That's what it felt like to me when I was standing there. I was standing in over top of where the Zamboni came out.
Okay, yeah, I
building.
can picture that exactly, yeah.
It's dark, and there's some people, workers, they were there to make sure we were safe.
Yeah.
And they're kind of walking along, but they have these lights on their helmets, and that's the only way I could see them coming. I thought, this is like we're going through a tomb in Egypt. Like, this is like an archaeological dig. And that sort of stuck with me as to we're going into a time capsule, because basically I was really surprised, and that's a year ago now, how little decay there was in the building. Like, there wasn't even a lot of, I've seen the building dustier after a rodeo than what it was that day. There was a little damage in some of the offices in the front because the leaky roof and water and what like that. But inside the arena proper, it looked like they could turn the lights on and put ice in, and away we would go. It was that well preserved.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
And it was nice to be there again.
Yeah.
Just to remember all the great games, and I could hear Bob Ridley calling the games. Yeah.
I think in that same article, there's a quote about loudest barn in the dub.
Oh, yeah.
And so when I think about this show about community and identity, what did being at the arena when it was alive teach you about how a place like that can shape community?
Well, in the beginning, when the Tigers went into the Western Canada Hockey League, I was still living in Lethbridge, but I remember the first time we came down for a game, and I was just gobsmacked walking into that building, because that was the biggest arena I had been into at that time, and all the old colored seats. We used to call it the Smarty Box.
The Smarty Box, yeah.
But it was packed. Yeah. It was a Saturday night, and everybody was dressed up like they were going to the opera.
Yeah. It's like a Montreal Canadiens game. Right?
Oh, it was the thing to do. It was the place to be. It was a community center where everybody went, their neighbors, their friends, whoever could get in, could get a ticket, and they all rooted for the Tigers. And there was, you always knew where everybody sat. And you look over and say, well, they're not here tonight. I wonder if everything's okay.
Right.
Yeah, you knew you knew your seatmates, and you knew their families, and it was a community area.
Yeah. I was always, as a kid, I was so amazed. Like, these guys are in here playing this sport, and there's just like so much smoke you can't see the other
you could smoke in there. You had to get up and go in the back, but you could smoke up there in the back of the seats. Yeah. And the haze. Yeah. And of course, 2007 when the Tigers played the Vancouver Giants, it wasn't smoke; it was fog.
Right. Yes.
Fog bowl. They had to stop the game and get the players skate around a little bit so that they'll dissipate the fog. Because May the 15th, I think, was the date. It was warm and humid outside.
There was an article that I looked for it before this, but I just remember reading it. And I think it was a Globe and Mail reporter came here and did a story on Medicine Hat Tigers hockey. And the thing that I remember from that article was, well, he was just talking about how passionate the fans were, and that he's never been in a building where the fans yelled, "Shoot!" so often.
I think that almost goes back to when Jack Shoup played here for the Tigers in the old arena gardens.
Oh, yeah.
They always used to, my parents told me, they'd all holler, "Shoot, shoot!" Yeah, I still holler at the TV, "Shoot!" They don't hear me, but I still holler at them. Yeah.
He's my dad. He was a Leafs fan. They're shooting, but they don't hit the net.
Yeah.
If there was a sound that you could package from the arena and play it for somebody who hadn't experienced it, what would that be?
Bob Ridley calling that goal, double overtime.
Yeah.
2007, Brendan Bosch.
Yeah.
I still have that on digital.
Yeah.
I play it every now and then because it's just so emotional.
Yeah. Yeah. It was some super special moments in that building. Hey.
Yep.
I'm going to pivot just a little bit, and you've brought this up already. CHAT shutters closes down, and you wrote a letter to the editor that was thankful and not bitter.
No.
And so what did you have to do internally to arrive at a place of gratitude versus
Count your blessings.
Yeah.
It was always a privilege to be allowed into people's homes, either on the radio or in the car.
Yeah.
Never took that for granted.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
People, in Medicine Hat, you get to know the people.
Yeah.
And they become your friends.
Yeah.
And I was always thankful for the opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, I have so many good memories of listening to you and Bob and tons of sports casts and whether that was Blue Jays stuff and it's I have my friend's son is just entering into the broadcast business. He's just finished at Mount Royal. Truman Bartman. I don't know if you've met Truman along the way.
Related to Terry or
Jamie? Terry
Lloyd?
And Jamie's. Yeah, so Lloyd would have been Grandpa, and Troy's the youngest brother of those. Pudge is the other brother. And Truman has done the Mavericks games for the last 2 years.
Okay.
And he does Mount Royal. I think he and another person share the hockey duties at Mount Royal, and he does play-by-play for girls' game or boys' games, and the color for the girls' games, and the girl they flip the roles there, and just thinking about what kind of advice might you have for young people entering the world of communications.
Don't get a big head.
Yeah.
Don't get a big head. People think, well, you're famous, everybody knows your name. And no, you're just a guy who went to work every day and happened to be talking to people at the time. I'm reminded of Paul Harvey said that self-importance has ruined more good reporters than anything in this world. When you think that you're bigger than the story, you're in trouble.
Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah. So, Bring Back the Porch. Bernie Leahy has this. Has this project.
Yeah.
And started it during the pandemic.
He started it, I think, in 2020, 2021. About that time, the way he tells the story is that he was, he'd been a realtor for a good number of years. As he says, he's been lucky. I say you were blessed.
Yeah.
We always have that little back and forth. But he was talking, maybe it's time to retire. And his wife, Ina, said, well, you better get a hobby because you'll go crazy if you just sit around and do nothing. So he thought, well, I like photography. So he went to a camera store and came up with all his podcast equipment. So he set up the studio, did a very good job of it, and started doing podcasts. At the time, it was the 2021 civic election. So he was talking to some of the candidates, much like we did here in the 2025 election. And that, kind of passed. And then he got busy with real estate again, and it kind of just took a holiday, went on hiatus until this past summer again in July of 2025 when we got together. And Bob and Lynette Schneider, who worked with me at CHAT, I had asked It was a week after they had pulled the plug on the TV station, and the Chamber of Commerce did a Facebook Live with some of the people that had been there and were still hurting from losing their jobs and their livelihood and their existence and their purpose. Yeah. And I said, hey, I got this idea, and anybody interested? And a few people said, yeah. And Bob and Lynette were among them. And so when I talked to Bernie, I would message him. I said, I'll be meeting with Bernie. Do you want to come down and just see what this is all about? And they came and they said, yeah, I think this will be fun. And we kind of stumbled around in the dark a little bit. Went to the podcast summit where we met each other. And my eyes just went, holy moly, this is a happening industry. Yeah. This is like radio was maybe when I got into it in the early 70s, where you weren't formatted. You could do what you wanted to do. They could play the records they wanted to play. There was no corporate stamp. It was you could have fun. Yeah. And that is our rule, is that we don't do anything if it's not fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and it really is about consistency. Hey, like I think that's what I've learned from looking at some people, especially the people at the Pod Summit. They deliver consistently, and some people do it like this with the video cameras, and some just do voice, and they find a niche. And there was a guy at last year's summit who was the anchor for Fox News in Miami, and he's Canadian. And he had started this podcast on the side about wrestling because he really liked wrestling. In fact, I think he went to a wrestling camp, like not like Olympic wrestling, but like WWF kind of wrestling. He went to a camp to try out to be a wrestler. And so he started this podcast about wrestling, and he knew that his time at Fox was going to come to an end when he started phoning in sick so he could do his podcast stuff. But I think he has like the number 4 sports podcast in North America, and hangs out with The Rock, and it just like, you don't. There was one last year that was about kendamas and coffee. And a kendama is like this little toy where it's a ball you bounce on it, and you throw it up in the air, and you flip it, and you catch it on the other side. And this guy has a podcast that he earns an income off of, talking about coffee and kendama toys.
Wow. Now that's a niche.
Yeah. Like there's people all over the world who are super interested in this. And I'm like, how? How did you even think to put that onto the internet? Like that's blows my mind.
Well, Bernie, with his Bring Back the Porch, his idea was in days gone by, just about every house had a front porch. And you'd go out in the evening in the summertime when it was nice and sit on the porch because it was probably too hot in the house. And you'd sit there, and your neighbors might come out, and they might come over for a visit, or you'd go to their porch and you'd sit there and talk about the day's events or family or whatever. You just had neighborly conversations. Yeah. And that was how he got the idea of Bring Back the Porch, because he remembered as a boy growing up in Ralston, because his father was a scientist out there, how that community in Ralston performed and how they interacted on the front porch. So that's where he got the name, and I love it. Yeah. I love the idea of just neighborly conversations.
I was going to ask, and it's tied to this, that when the local news station leaves, it creates a vacuum, right? There's nothing there. In this latest iteration of the porch, are you hoping to restore something in that space?
It is. It's on our radar. It's a long-term goal. We don't want to be in competition. We want to be complementary. So we want to tell stories that maybe don't make the daily news, people stories, because that's always what I love doing the most, is telling stories about people, what they're doing, what they like, what they're interested in, and positive stories about Medicine Hat. We hear enough negative stuff. Let's find stories that are uplifting for everyone. If we had the bodies and the money, we would like to branch out, and of course sports is an area that I think is underserved. So that is an area that I think we could have put on our radar. Yeah. But there's all kinds of different areas like wellness. Mental health is a big one that we want to look at in the coming year, hopefully. economic development. What are the opportunities in Medicine Hat? Not what are the drawbacks, not what are people complaining about, but what are our opportunities? We hear people from outside Medicine Hat gush about what a great city we have, but we seem to have this inferiority complex in Medicine Hat that, well, we're not as good as them or whatever. No, we should be sticking our chests out and saying, we live in Medicine Hat. You can live better here in Medicine Hat. Right. We need to tell the positive stories. And I remember going back with Orv Cope. He was our general manager at CHAT, and he always used to say, we are Medicine Hat's biggest booster. We don't tear down, we build up.
Are there, like, when you're thinking about those kinds of story pieces as you transition from a broadcasting career to something that's a bit more entrepreneurial, really, are there things that apply or things that you're learning along the way?
Business is not my forte. I'm not a salesperson.
Yeah.
I have done sales in my life and found out I wasn't very good at it because I couldn't take people's money.
Yeah.
I think it was Zig Ziglar who used to say that as a salesperson, the good ones, you don't get what you want until the client gets what they want. And, that you have to look at it as a dynamic like that. And I think maybe now I'm ready for that, where I wasn't, a long time ago. Yeah. That living on commission is like,
Yeah, you want to believe in what you're.
Oh yeah, you
selling,
have to
right?
believe in it.
Yeah, it's I similar path. I was a golf pro my first couple years, and I loved teaching lessons. I hated slinging shirts because my friends would come in and go like, you don't want to buy that. It's like marked up double. Yeah. Yeah. And we didn't even have like a winners or anything then to get deals, right? And so having some belief.
When I sold cars, I had a rule that if I didn't believe the car was a good car, I wouldn't try to sell it to somebody because I didn't want to be walking down the street 6 months later and here comes Corey and sold him that. Oh no! Across the street, maybe he won't see me. I didn't want that.
Yeah, you end up with 10 of those people. You're like,
yeah, oh yeah.
You're Zig Ziglar, all right. You're Zig Ziglar.
I wanted to be able to see people and have them, be thankful that they were in an automobile that suited their needs. And I think I sold 31 cars in the summer of 1989, and I don't think anybody ever came back, and nobody ever was bad-mouthing me, but it wasn't enough to make a living.
Yeah. So the show itself, you guys run the gamut. You cover life and politics and family, and sometimes those can be contentious things. And so what's your secret to kind of keeping it
Try not to be confrontational.
Yeah.
There are ways you can ask a question to get an answer without leaning into the person and pointing a finger or being accusatory. Just ask a question in a different way, in a different tone, and maybe you don't get the answer that you want right away.
Yeah.
But you can come back to it. And I always used to tell the young reporters when I would coach them, just like you, they would have a pad with their questions. And I would watch the videotape when they came back when they were interviewing somebody, and they would ask, blah, 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 stick the microphone out, and they're looking down at their notes. Not listening to what the person is saying. And 9 times out of 10, that person gave them gold, but they didn't follow up on it because they weren't listening. They were worried about, well, what's the next question I have to ask? So you be respectful. Ask a question in a respectful manner, and you will get a response.
Yeah. And sometimes the paraphrase is the most powerful thing, right?
Yep. I had a boss one time said to me, he says, Brian, do you know how you control a situation? No. He says, ask a question. Oh. He says, do you know how you keep control of a situation? Ask another question. And it was like, that was good advice.
Yeah. How has the response been as far as when you reach out to people and say, hey, would you like to be on the show?
It's been fantastic. Yeah. Nobody has said, I don't want to go on that piece of crap. People are starting to, especially during the election campaign, I was getting stopped in the store from people. Is it too late? Yeah. Can I come on? And we actually extended it by 2 more days to fit in a few more candidates because we want to do as many as we could without burning out ourselves.
Right.
Because, like, what was there? 39 council
You would have had to
candidates.
start this last year.
We would have had to start it a whole lot earlier than we did. But we did. We managed to get a goodly number of people on there. But no, I have yet to have somebody say, no, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is I take as a positive.
Yeah. Well, and if people are actually reaching out to say, can I come on your show?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's gold too, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and I think you had shared at the Pod Summit, something like 13,000 people had watched an episode or something like that.
Yeah, we were blown away in the first little while on some of our views. Like we had, I think in the first 10 days, we had close to 40,000 views.
Wow, I'd like to get 40.
Yeah, well, that was total.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we had done a number. And I think the last set of analytics I saw, between all the different platforms, because you can find us just about everywhere.
Yeah.
Our marketing person sent us a report last week. I think we were close to 400,000 views.
Oh, wow.
And not just Medicine Hat. But
Yeah.
we got people in Edmonton, Calgary, Red Deer, Lethbridge, Australia.
Wow.
What? Why? Got to be somebody with a connection to Medicine Hat.
Yeah. Yeah, and you think about how, like, Medicine Hat's one place.
Mm-hmm.
Like, lots of places could have stories like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's
Well, we had worked with a class at the Medicine Hat College. Their art and design and business administration marketing.
Yeah.
Their assignment was to try to find a marketing plan for us. And so we would go out and speak with them, and they would come up with ideas and stuff. And I was sitting there thinking, what we need to do is do a podcast with these young people because we need the younger audience. Mm-hmm. We need their feedback. So I pitched it to the instructor, Sean DeGrieve, and, that sounds like fun. But he had, of course, get approval from the college administration, and they said, okay. So we did do a podcast, and we had 4 students that were our guests.
Yeah.
And they came up with a concept. And everybody was enthusiastic, all of the people in the club, because they all had different jobs and they all got to see a little bit of how things work. And we did it in an area of the college where people could walk by, and we had an audience. People stopped and listened. Yeah. And at the end, they applauded. And it was really neat because, all those years in radio or television, you're sitting there, you're talking to a wall. There's nobody else there. There was a live audience, and it was really fun.
That is a neat idea of doing some live podcasts, hey, like they did at the Pod Summit, right? If there's the right venue in the community to do that, that could be a fun little thing. And
I have another idea in my mind too that I want to get into, like maybe a junior high school. When I worked in Calgary, we had a radio program. It was called Radio Wow. And what they did was that among the schools in Calgary, they had it was radio, but they would had a kit, it was a recorder, microphone, and whatnot. And each school had to produce a 15-minute program about their school with their classmates for broadcast on the radio on Sunday morning. And that was one of the most popular shows that we had on CKXL radio was Radio Wow. So I'd kind of like to see if we can figure out how we can maybe do that with some of the schools here in Medicine Hat.
I got some connections.
Yeah. I'll give you a call.
Yeah.
We'll have lunch. Because I think that's great to get young people involved in communication.
Yeah. When you think about the kind of the state of the communication world, and we're a small urban center, what do you think a healthy information ecosystem looks like in a community like ours?
Well, it needs supportive advertisers. That is number one. Advertising is the lifeblood of journalism. Without that, there are no cameras, there are no microphones. People can't make a living at it. So that is part of it.
Yeah.
You also have to deliver a product to your advertiser that benefits them, brings people into their business, and puts, jingle into their jeans.
Right.
It's a symbiotic relationship. And you also, the audience has to get something out of it too. Yeah. And they can tell when something is staged and phony, or if you're doing something for the algorithm because you just want to build the numbers. So there's like a 3-way partnership there, I think.
Yeah. So I had, when I retired, people said, "Oh, you're gonna go to work on your podcast." And I said, "Well, like I'm out making money doing a podcast. No, like it's. I think that'd be a good way to spend your retirement. I don't know necessarily a way to pay for your retirement. What's next for you and your team?
Well, we're trying to figure out a corporate structure as to who's going to do what. What do we look like to the public? We've just had discussions about that yesterday. We've got a couple of ideas that I'd like to be able to tell you, but by the time this airs, it could be totally different.
Right.
So, but it's just getting something that we can go out to people with and say, this is what we're doing. We can show them samples. We can show them who's viewing, so that these people could be your customers, and we would like to bring these people into your store. Would you advertise with us and support local journalism, local storytelling, without any bias? Because I've always believed from the day I got into the business, it's not my opinion. It's whatever, you try to get both sides of the story. Sometimes one side doesn't want to say anything,
right? But
you present it and you let the listener or the viewer make up their mind. You don't make it up for them.
Yeah, I hope that there is a response to that in our community, because it really is something that.
I still have people coming to me saying, "Boy, we miss chat. We miss chat television." People told me it was part of their routine. That they would sit down and have dinner with us because we're on the TV. And that I spoke earlier about how privilege. That's privilege. If they think that much of us, to invite us into their home at that time when they're having their meal, to share that time with them.
How about the flexing the creative muscle? Like you guys are obviously brainstorming pretty hard on lots of things. Has that been reinvigorating? Has that been
very invigorating? There was times when we were just thinking about this idea. I would wake up in the middle of the night. I'd get up and go to my computer and I'd write a couple of notes so I didn't forget, or I had a scratch pad to write down some ideas, because it was just like the floodgates opened. And it was like, well, we can do this. Well, maybe we can try that. And I say it's probably, I wouldn't say added 20 years on in my life to make me feel old. Probably makes me feel like I was 20 years younger.
Right, like you said, like it feels like the early days of radio. Right?
It's been invigorating. And we have lots of ideas. The discouraging part is that we either don't have the time yet, or we always seem to get bogged down with trying to figure out our corporate structure, all of that stuff that takes away from the actual creation, which is what I want to do.
And what I found about the podcast community is they're really receptive to sharing and supporting one another. And I've heard from other people here in Medicine Hat on a project that I hope will come to fruition in 2026, to see if they would take part in it, because their story would be the story I want to tell, and they are absolutely 100% in favor of it, and they're podcasters too. So we do have a little community here, and we are all in the same boat. We're all trying to do something that we enjoy, do something that brings value to the community. Well, I really appreciate getting a chance to sit down with you, and I wanted to try to steal your closing line from the Our Town there and work that in. But
that's just another story in the history of our town.
Yes, perfect. It's better coming from you anyways. So thanks a lot.
Well, I'm glad that you asked me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Hey. Well, thanks, sir.
You're welcome.
Motivation Local is produced by Table 4 Productions with the generous support of TELUS Story Hive. You can find our episodes on Optic TV, at our website, motivationlocal.com, on our YouTube channel, or wherever you get your podcasts. Our producer is Turner Sotomayor. Our theme music was composed by Medicine Hat musical artists Snakes and the Riot. As always, thanks for watching or listening to our podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard here, don't hesitate to subscribe to our channel or to leave us some feedback.